if you've been in this athletic space long enough, you probably heard a variation of this line. Just pay the athletes. Like that's like the number one line. People say, just pay the athletes, right? And I probably said it a few times too, being a former athlete, I was on the outside. I'm like, just pay the athletes, right? Just pay them. Just pay the money. But the more I spend inside of the college athletic space, it's becoming more evident that that's a dangerous line. Like, just pay the athletes. That solves one issue. It solves them not having money. It solves them not having access to the revenue. It solves uh, the whole argument about for years athletes have been taken advantage of. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to pay athletes. I'm saying there's other decisions that come after that, right? Because my favorite line is like, and then what, right? You pay the athletes, then what? And most people from the outside only focus only on the action. And as I go through this journey and through this industry, you start to understand that just paying athletes is not enough, because paying them turns into exposure, right? Then they have other things that open up. So when you give them a contract, yes, pay them. Pay them their money. Pay athletes all the money that they are owed. But then what? The athlete has to have a team around them, has to have some financial literacy, has to have being mature enough to fulfill the obligations in the contracts, have a team that knows how to manage them properly. So just paying the athlete, that's like one piece. That's like one aspect of this whole revenue share space, and everybody stays right there. Just pay the athlete, just pay him, just pay him, just pay him. And that actually causes more harm than it does good. But until you're in it, you don't realize it, right? Because once you give anybody any type of money, if they don't have the discipline or the maturity, they're going to make decisions that aren't always in their best interest, right? Think about like a lottery winner. They win the Powerball, they win all this money, and then they end up broke in what, 2 or 3 years. Why? Because nobody ever gave them the tools to receive that kind of money. Nobody ever gave them the discipline to say no to people. Nobody ever gave them the literacy to know about taxes, know about saving, investing, and all those things. So just pay an athlete, or I just hope to hit the lotto. To me, it's all in the same boat, because a lump sum of money with no discipline is one of those things where you set them up for failure, right? Because they're going to end up in the same hands anyway, right? And now that we're in this space and we're paying athletes, I would ask anybody, what's changed? What's changed? We still talk about the portal. Athletes are still leaving. Athletes are still flipping commitments. They'll commit to one school and they'll flip. Uh, Athletes are still academically failing and becoming ineligible. So yes, we pay them, but what did that actually change? Each school has money, and it's like, okay, we got the most money. An athlete won't choose your school because you got the most money. So if we're talking about just pay the athletes, shouldn't it be the highest bidder should sign all athletes? If if the solution was to just pay athletes, why are we still talking about guys going to the portal, guys not being loyal, guys not knowing about tradition, guys are mercenaries? Like, why are we still having this conversation if it's about paying athletes, right? And you think about it, right? So you solve one issue, got it, pay the athletes. But what about the risks that come with it? Have you ever sat across from an athlete or a young adult and say, we're going to pay you six figures? Just that sentence alone, it's no money being exchanged, the contract ain't even there, we ain't even got nothing in place. You just changed their whole life just from the sentence. And I find it fascinating when I'm sitting across from them and I'm talking about these numbers and these contracts, and you start to see the body language change, the posture change. You start to see their real character. You start to see the family dynamic shift. You start to see people who come with them start to look in the sky and start envisioning what they're about to buy. And just paying the athlete, if you didn't care, it's like, hey man, look, we getting the money. That's on them. They grown. They're not grown. Their families aren't even grown. You're talking about giving an 18-year-old or a 19, 20-year-old X amount of dollars ingested into a family that probably had never seen that kind of money as a whole. So you have to look at the risk. Are they going to really have a budget, right? Who's on their team? They're talking about the taxes and preserving their income and thinking about the future. It's so many people who hands are in the pot that just paying the athlete, you set them up, because once you give them the money, here come the vultures. Everybody has a new idea. Everybody has a new service. Everybody has an emergency. Everybody is your best friend. You want to go shopping. You want to go travel. You ain't never, did certain things when you was a kid. You want to repay people who drove you to practice, took you to game, took you to camps. You think you owe them. Just paying the athletes is one piece. But what comes after that is where all of the risks are taking place at. And I don't think anybody thinks that through. But I sit with them. I sit and I throw out these numbers, and I just watch how the room shifts. And then you started like hearing like who's involved, who gets paid from this, who gets paid from this, how much is going to mom, how much is going to your agent, how much is going to financial advisor, how much is going to your brand, how much is it's like, man, they're already counting the dollars and they haven't even got a check yet. But just pay the athletes. Just pay them. Just pay them. As an adult, as a professional in this space who is making a conscious decision to compensate an athlete X amount of dollars, it is irresponsible for us to just pay the athlete. Just, here you go, have at it. So when I sit in the rooms, I'm always asking who's on your team, who's controlling our money, who do I call when it's time for you to show up for an obligation, who's the one that's going to be on the contract, what happens if you change agencies. Like, there are so many things that go into the conversations that I'm having with them that it had nothing to do with just pay the athlete. Just pay the athlete comes last. If you lead with the money, everything from there is going to be about money. You have to start in the inverse and understand their environment, because if you don't, just paying the athlete, you're setting up the program, you're setting up the community, you're setting up the family, you're setting up the athlete, your team, everything for destruction. Because the internet says, just pay the athletes. Just pay them. Y'all been getting over on them for years. Okay? Like they say in that social world, two things can be true at one time. Okay? The athletes, we were cut out from the revenue share for years. Cool. Well, now that they're in it, now what? It's not enough to just say, turn on a switch and say, just pay the athletes, right? And I think that's where a lot of literacy and illiteracy kicks in too, because you even have some of the agents and the financial people and the managers and whoever's around who have never seen that kind of money, who've never dealt with that kind of money, who never managed that kind of money, who never even had a wire hit their account for that kind of money. Yet they are in charge of your money because you just pay the athletes. They're the expert, but they've never done what you're doing. So now everybody's learning on the dime of the athlete. And the craziest concept is you switched the overseer. You switched the governor. You went from, the NCAA and the schools wasn't allowing athletes to get paid their worth. Then you flip it on and say, okay, what are we going to do on revenue share? Now you have an agent, a manager, financial advisor, a tax person, mom, dad, cousin, uncle, brother. They all got their hands in the pot now. So you just traded one organization who you argued with and gave it to 8 more organizations. And at least they have some sort of structure around them where there's an organization, there's some fiduciary responsibilities, some things. Over here, man, your cousin don't know nothing about no fiduciary responsibilities. They like, hey, look, we rich, cuz we up. So we just paid the athlete, and then he paid 8 more people who have no idea what they're doing. So yeah, we solved one issue and created 8 more. And nobody wants to have that conversation because it exposes what the industry really wasn't ready for on both sides, on the athlete side and on the NCAA and the industry side. The industry was not ready for athletes to become an enterprise where they share the revenue. Well, the athletes wasn't ready to become an enterprise either. Because now you give a lottery winner or an 18-year-old or 20-year-old all this money, they don't know what to do with it either. So you go from it's an institution that's is bureaucratic, it is political, it was years and decades of one way, and then the switch turned on. Now you just say, look, man, our job, pay the athletes. Now you give them the money, and y'all have to now do what they've been doing for hundreds of years. Budget, manage risk, pay expenses, taxes, protection, insurance, all these things, and then you're putting people in place without hiring them. You just got them there because they're familiar. But what they should be doing is mimicking what they're doing or what they've done and build an enterprise along the same line. But you don't, because the middlemen and the middle voices have tainted the relationship where it's so adversarial, where it's like, I'm gonna do better than them. I'll make sure all my people eat. So it used to just happen in the league. Now it's happening on the college level. Just pay the athlete, give them their money, give them what they're worth, give them what they're worth. Well, one, you don't know what they're worth. Two, you just give them the money and it's like, okay, they don't know what they're worth and they don't know how to value the people around them. So they just paying them whatever they're asking for. Now the money goes from here to them, back to here. It's the craziest concept. So I would say every day you hear all these people with these highlights and these think pieces of pay the athletes. This is what they were. They should have got this. Okay, pay them. Then what? Nobody cares about the then what, because it's always pay the athletes and then we'll help them. Should have helped them before they got paid, because just paying them, you give anybody a lot of money, they're going to end up in a worse position if you didn't position them on the front end. So when I talk about decision making and governance and all the things that come with it, it's not just pay the athletes, it's who decides what the athlete gets paid, when they get paid, what the contract should look like. And then someone should be, as a mediary, like, okay, from the institution to the athlete, someone sits right here where they can filter and understand both sides of the house and say, this is what this money means. This is what this contract means. This is how this school pays that. And I'm not negotiating on your behalf, and I'm not negotiating on their behalf. You have a team, but this is how you should put your team together. Because once this money enters into your ecosystem, you're now in control of that. And if you never had $100,000, to you, a $5,000 bill is small. But in all reality, that's a lot of money to give anybody without any return or no service. But because the money is just flowing and there's no middle barrier or somebody being able to break it down and explain it, money goes in, it goes, money goes out, it goes in, it goes out, and these people are getting rich. You're going to be at zero. You just paid the athlete. You did your job. But then you look on your other side, you just sending this money out with no return, then where did this go? So the most dangerous line in sports right now is just pay the athletes. Because